This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Istanbul, Turkey on April 23rd, 2024. I arrived in Istanbul late last night after having received an invitation several days ago by the organizers of the Canada Boat to Gaza, with which I've been involved for some years, to participate in this year's emergency Freedom Flotilla to Gaza mission, which is scheduled to depart from Istanbul tomorrow and make its way, if possible, directly to the shores of Gaza with many tons of humanitarian aid, and only, of course, humanitarian aid, accompanied by hundreds of citizens of conscience from around the world, many of them from the global south, a significant number from Western countries. And the goal of this mission is not only to deliver desperately needed assistance to the terrorized and devastated civilian population of Gaza, but also to draw even greater attention to the crimes of Israel and the complicity of Western governments in those crimes at this critical moment in the history of the Palestinian people. This will not be my first participation. The first time that I participated in the Freedom Flotilla as an on-boat participant was in 2018. I joined that voyage in Lisbon. We stopped in two locations, including in Cadiz in the south of Spain, on our way to Sicily and then to Gaza. Unfortunately, on that particular mission, I developed appendicitis between Cadiz and Naples, which was our stop before landing on the shores of Sicily. And as a result, the doctor on our vessel, it was a sailing vessel, and the captain decided jointly that I needed to be transported to the nearest port with medical facilities, which happened to be the port of Algiers in Algeria. And that's an experience I must say that I will never forget. It's one that I have both fond memories of and painful memories of, because it did preclude my participation in the balance of the voyage to Gaza. But one of the many wonderful memories I have of that particular mission was when we arrived at the port. The workers treated us very, very warmly. The port workers and the emergency staff who had been summoned to the port, when they saw the Palestinian flags and realized what our mission was all about, they took me promptly to a public hospital. I was operated upon, had an appendectomy within a matter of hours. And the next morning when I woke up, the head of surgery of the facility came to see me. He was very gracious. And at the conclusion of our conversation, I asked him how much I owed for the medical services, and he told me that they weren't going to charge me a dime out of a solidarity with the Palestinian people. I then managed to rejoin the flotilla in Sicily about 10 days later, after recovering in a hotel room in Algiers, but I wasn't really in a condition to complete the voyage, which can be quite rigorous. So I'm gratified to have the opportunity to do it again, although obviously I would have preferred that it were under dramatically different circumstances. Now, my subsequent participation, this will be my third time, was last year. I participated in two segments in Northern Europe, and the intention was, after much deliberation by the organizers, that the current mission was going to be concluded. It was going to be spread over 2 summers and was going to be concluded in the summer of 2024. But this was all before the genocide erupted in Gaza. And once that unfolded, the decision was made to expedite a mission directly to Gaza's shores with many tons of humanitarian aid. Frankly, I don't know, nobody knows, it seems at this stage, out of the many hundreds of people who are involved in this, it may even be thousands of people who are involved in some level in this humanitarian mission. I don't think anybody knows at this moment whether or not the Turkish authorities are going to actually allow the vessels to depart tomorrow or at any time. And that is because the Turkish government of Recep Erdoğan is coming under intense pressure, we are told, by a number of governments, including in particular the American government and the United States government, the British government, and of course the genocidal Israeli regime. Now, one might ask, why would Recep Erdoğan, the president of Turkey, after having delivered so many fiery speeches and condemned so vigorously Israel's crimes over the past 6 months, why would he even hesitate to allow this humanitarian mission to depart? And that's a perfectly good question. I note that despite his fiery speeches and his entirely warranted condemnations of Israel, up until very recently, he did not back up his rhetoric with any meaningful actions against the criminal regime. And in fact, it was only after his political party took a drubbing in local elections a couple of weeks ago that he finally did something. He imposed trade restrictions on Israel. But even then, he limited their duration to the time when a ceasefire is finally put in place. He didn't say that he would keep them in place beyond that, for example, until the Palestinian people finally have a state, until the occupation is ended, until the siege is lifted of Gaza, which has caused so much suffering, until the criminals in Israel's government and military are held accountable. No, he was only willing to put them in place until a ceasefire is instituted in Gaza. And there's good reason to believe that the reason he did that is because the drubbing his party took in the local elections was due in significant part to the immense frustration of the Turkish people with their government's inaction. And I'm told by a Turkish activist that an Islamist party that had very little following garnered somewhere in the range of 6% of the popular vote in these recent local elections, in large part because they were vociferously criticizing Erdoğan for paying mere lip service to the human rights of the Palestinian people. So one would think that this person, given his purported sensitivities to the suffering of the Palestinian people, would not hesitate to allow this humanitarian mission to depart. But given his record, it's difficult to predict exactly what he's going to do. An equally interesting question, and as a citizen of a Western country, I say an even more compelling question, is why are Western governments putting pressure on the Turkish government not to allow these vessels to depart? Well, one possibility may be that they are concerned about our well-being. I find that, frankly, to be highly implausible. Why would they care about our well-being when they aren't willing to hold Israel accountable for the blatant murder of Western citizens? For example, the 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers who were massacred by Israel a couple of weeks ago. There's no indication they're actually going to hold Israel accountable. For that, they haven't imposed any sanctions of any serious import on Israel since then. And they haven't imposed any sanctions, notwithstanding the fact that there is a genocide happening before the eyes of the world. So the idea that they are putting pressure on the Turkish government to prevent us from going because they're concerned about our well-being. And by the way, a great many of those people come from the global south. They aren't even citizens of the West. So it's even less plausible that concern for the well-being of the participants is their motivation. Well, one might say they're concerned, or they don't want this mission to happen because they feel that we're some kind of a security threat to Israel. Now, maybe the lunatics and psychopaths in Israel's ruling elite think we're terrorists, but I very much doubt that any decision maker in any Western government takes that claim seriously. So they can't truly believe that we are some kind of a threat to the military security, the physical security of Israel or its military forces. That really only leaves one possibility, it seems to me, of all the various motivations they might have for trying to put a stop to this humanitarian mission, and that is they are worried about being embarrassed yet again, because given Israel's historical treatment of humanitarian activists who seek to come to the aid of the Palestinian people, it's entirely possible that they are going to engage in some unspeakable savagery And it'll become even more difficult than it already is for Western governments to justify to their citizens why they continue to support this genocidal regime. At the end of the day, we should by now not hesitate in adopting the most, shall we say, uncharitable interpretation of the governments, of the comportment of Western governments, given their astonishing tolerance for the crimes of the State of Israel. And, you know, today we went through some nonviolence training, and we were reminded quite forcefully by the organizers just how brutal the forces of Israel can be. They showed us footage, which I'm going to share with you, at least some of it at the end of this report, of the 2010 attack by Israeli commandos on a vessel known as the Mavi Marmara. They murdered in cold blood 9 humanitarian activists during that assault. They boarded the vessel forcibly on the high seas in international waters. This was an act of piracy. They had absolutely no justification to do it. And they then confiscated the vessels, imprisoned, at least temporarily, a number of the people on those boats. There were hundreds of them. There were substantial quantities of humanitarian goods that were confiscated by the Israelis, never given to their intended beneficiaries. And generally speaking, this has been the strategy that Israel has employed with respect to the Freedom Flotilla coalition. Fortunately, in other missions, they didn't kill the activists. They did beat them up. They did brutalize them. They did kidnap them on the high seas, but they didn't kill them. They typically now, their strategy, although they have allowed a couple of missions to get to the shores of Gaza, is to assault the vessel in international waters, force the passengers and the crew into the sovereign territory of Israel when they had no intention of going there. They intended to go to Gaza, which is occupied Palestinian territory, and never enter Israel's territorial waters. And once they have them there and they interrogate them within the sovereign territory of Israel and beat them up a bit, confiscate all of their goods, they subject them to a legal proceeding that results in their deportation, which effectively means that they can never re-enter the country. Now, typically you deport people, if you're a government, who are trying to get into your country. This has to be the only state on earth that forcibly kidnaps people in international waters, brings them into the territory against their will, and then subjects them to deportation proceedings as if they actually wanted to be there in the first place, contrary to the laws of Israel. But such are the inanities and insanities of the genocidal regime. So in any event, I'm going to continue to keep you posted about the events here. As I say, hopefully we'll be leaving tomorrow. The non-violence training today was led in part, you're going to see her in a clip I'm going to show you, by Colonel Ann Wright. She's actually a retired U.S. Army colonel. She resigned her position in, I believe it was 2003, in protest over the decision of the Bush administration to launch a criminal invasion of Iraq. And Anne has been an outspoken, passionate, and just extraordinary voice for justice, for respect for international law, and for, amongst other victims of oppression, the Palestinian people. So that's my report for the time being. I hope you'll follow this mission closely, and please do share this video. If you found it to be informative, please like it, and just generally look out for news about the Freedom Flotilla, because the best way for us to contribute to respect for the human rights of the Palestinian people is to draw the attention of the world to the extent of their suffering and the complicity of Western governments in it. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Istanbul, Turkey on April 23rd, 2024.
And I am here with a a very, very important person who has been able to bring you all here, our wonderful head of the International Campaign to End the Siege, Zahir Barawi.
Thank you and thank you very much. شكرا. الآن هي يعني ترحب بي بصفتي رئيسا للجنة الدولية لكسر الحصار، عضو مؤسس في تحالف أسطول الحرية، مسؤول عن العالم العربي وبريطانيا وإيرلندا.
And we represent the Coalition Steering Committee that is the overseeing group of 10 national campaigns throughout the world.
نحن في هذا اللقاء أنا وهي نمثل اللجنة العليا لتحالف أسطول الحرية المكون من 12 مؤسسة في 12 دولة في العالم.
This is the 14th year that we've been having flotillas trying to break that Israeli terrible naval blockade of Gaza.
هذا العام الرابع عشر لجهودنا منذ التأسيس من أجل كسر الحصار الظالم وغير القانوني وغير الأخلاقي على غزة.
And I'm sure many of you remember, all of you remember in 2010, the Marvi Marmara expedition that had 7 ships, and tragically there were 10 people that were killed on the Marvi Marmara and 50 people that were wounded on the Marvi Marmara.
وكثير منكم إن لم يكن الجميع يتذكر في عام 2010 حادثة مارفي مرمرة، ومارفي مرمرة كانت هي السفينة الكبيرة ضمن تحالف كبير، كانت هي السفينة السابعة لكن هي الأكبر، وهي التي تم مداهمتها بشكل أساسي من قبل الجيش الإسرائيلي البحرية الإسرائيلية، واستشهد على متنها 9 شهداء كلهم من إخواننا الأتراك، وجرح 50 على الأقل، وأحد الجرحى استشهد لاحقا وهو أيضا تركي.
And were any of you all on the Marvi Marmara or the other boats of that mission?
وكان كثير منكم أو بعضكم على الأقل على تلك السفينة أو على المحاولات التي لحقت في هذه السفينة في الأعوام التالية.
Was anyone on the Marvi Marmara?
هل منكم من كان على مارفي مرمرة؟
Well, we thank you for coming back again 14 years later.
شكرا لحضورك مرة أخرى بعد 14 سنة.
Thank you. Well, the training that we have today is the very important training for us to recognize the dangers that we face and how we are going to address them on the big ship going to Gaza.
We don't really know what the Israelis are going to do. They've made very serious threats. They've said this convoy will not get through under any circumstances.
This has led the organisers to issue life jackets to all the passengers on board.
Israel as an occupying force does not have any right to stop us or to board us.
We have drones.
We can visually see one significantly large Israeli warship, and there are 3 altogether on radar.
Stop threatening us!
Israeli armed forces storm a Turkish ship on its way to Gaza. Many of the passengers are killed or injured. There's worldwide condemnation of the Israeli action. What will be the ramifications? This is Inside
we are appealing to the world to protect our mission. We're appealing to the countries of the world to put pressure on Israel not to attack this boat.
نحن نناشد العالم أن يمنع أي جرائم من قبل الاحتلال ضد هذه السفينة. نناشد دول العالم المختلفة أن يكون لها ضغط على دولة الاحتلال أن تسمح لهذه السفينة بالوصول إلى مرادها.
But we know international pressure has not done anything to stop the Israelis at this point.
للأسف أنتم تعلمون ونحن نعلم أن هذا الضغط في العالم لم يوقف جرائم الاحتلال حتى الآن.
And that's why you all are so courageous to be here to say you are willing to go for the people of Gaza, for the people of the West Bank, and you're willing to put your lives out there.
ولذلك في هذا السياق نحن نقدر حجم ومستوى الشجاعة التي تتمتعون بها أنكم في ظل هذه الظروف الخطيرة وفي ظل هذه الأزمة وفي ظل هذا اللا اكتراث من قبل دولة الاحتلال بأرواح البشر إلا أنكم تصرون على المجيء والمشاركة في هذه المهمة الخطرة.
And you will be joining hundreds of other internationals who have the same heart and the same spirit and have gone through the same training that you'll be going through.